Welcome to the Women Choosing Growth podcast, where we bring you practical advice and guidance on how to grow your business and achieve success in your entrepreneurial journey. We feature inspiring stories of success, challenges of growth, and lessons learned from women entrepreneurs, industry experts, and thought leaders who have been through the growing pains inevitable as an entrepreneur. Whether you are just getting started or are looking to scale up your business, our show is designed to provide you with the tools, resources, and community you need to grow your business. Join your host, Tina, a lifelong entrepreneur and business growth advisor, as we explore topics such as marketing, sales, finance, leadership, and personal growth, all tailored specifically to the needs of women entrepreneurs. So if you're ready to grow your business faster and smarter, and learn from the experiences of those who have traveled the growth path before you, then this podcast is for you. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get started.
Welcome to another episode, ladies. I am your host, Tina Sue, and today I am bringing you all kinds of information about making sure that your company culture is one of performance. So I've been working with several new clients recently, and who all have some similar common challenges, and it all points back to culture. So culture, or lack of a performance culture, can show up in many forms. Instead of me just telling you what you should have in place for a performance culture to be thriving in your business, I'm going to share with you some of these challenges and how they present themselves in your business when there is either weak performance or a non-existent culture of performance. And then I will share for each of those kind of feelings that you may have as a leader. I'll also share with you some strategies to improve in the ones that you feel are maybe most prevalent in your business. So the first one, let's talk about employees seeming confused on what to do next. Like, who hasn't had employees that seem to not know what they're supposed to be doing? They do A and B and don't think about C or anything beyond that. And maybe it's disorganization at a project level. Maybe it's projects. It's likely projects or tasks that are lacking structure or clear timelines. So all employees should, number one, be clear on the company goals, and then where their role in the company is in pursuit of those company goals, and how they and what they're working on affect that overall big picture. And this is something I see pretty common, that employees don't understand, depending on your industry, depending on what level of employee, very much could be like they're in the mindset of tactical. And you want some of those people who are very much like, I'm going to, check boxes in my job. Those people are also very necessary in certain businesses and certain positions. But in order to have this organization of performance culture, they can still have that mindset and that personality of needing to check boxes and be tactical. But as long as they understand that these tactical things are in pursuit of something bigger, and that is what ties them back to not understanding what to do next, because then they can see beyond the little checklist or the 5 things I'm supposed to do in a day. Especially comes up in repetitive positions, right? Because they're do the same thing, and if something goes wrong, they don't know what to think beyond that. So to fix this, if you're some of your team seems confused on what to do next, number one, make sure that the company goals, both financial and otherwise, so other metrics, like what is the big picture? What is our business about? Who are we trying to serve? What is it that we're trying to do as a company? And share some of those financial goals. Make sure they're clear, first of all, that they're written and they're accessible to all employees at all times. Now, I'm not saying you have to share everything on your P&L, but decide what you're wanting to share, what makes sense to share at what levels, and make sure that the employees have access to that. And I suggest in any leadership that you are sharing these monthly. It can be a slide at the monthly team meeting of hey, just a reminder, here's what we're in pursuit of. Here's what our business is all about. It's one slide. It's 30, 45 seconds long, but at least you are revisiting that. Then you can't just stop there, right? Because if these employees are feeling like they don't know what to do next, that's because they're probably not sure how what they do is tied to that big picture goal. And sometimes, actually quite often, employees think it's us versus them. It's us, the employees, versus the leaders or the owners of the business. So if you can make it more clear on how each department or each person in your company is playing a role in pursuit of that big goal, that is going to help with them being able to think beyond what they're doing today and know what to do next. Now, sometimes this would be project related, where maybe they're good overall, but sometimes in projects they don't know what to do next. That also is where different projects make it very clear of how that project or this particular new process fits into the overall picture. So it's really about communication and making sure that everyone like knows what direction the company is going in so that they can make a little bit more proactive choices. So, another thing that I see quite often, which shows lack of a performance culture, is when leaders feel like they are having to micromanage their team. So, this usually means that the leaders are micromanaging their team, but it's one of two things. Either it's the leader style and they don't know how to empower their employees, or it is the employees' this style of not feeling empowered enough to make decisions. So, is the leader providing clear guidance, support, accountability, or are they enabling the employees to come and ask for guidance every, double checking on things? What is that relationship? Because it could be either way. Does the team member feel like the leader has their back? So I've seen this happen. I know I can remember back to my early days of being an entrepreneur and feeling like I had to micromanage my people. What also turned out that I didn't give them enough rope. I didn't give them enough. I gave them encouragement in words, but my actions were double checking things and making sure that it was done my way. So I didn't, in the beginning of my entrepreneur and leadership journey, I didn't empower them and say, I literally have your back. Like, I have trained you, I trust you, I've given you clear boundaries of the decisions you can make. And if you make a wrong decision within these boundaries, I will still have your back. So that's super important. So to make sure, if you're feeling like this as a leader, or if your leaders have expressed this to you as the owner, make sure that there's clear guidelines for every team member. Where can they make decisions? Where can they just run with a project or with their everyday tasks? What's expected of them? Boundaries are huge in raising kids, in all relationships, and employees is no different. So make sure that to make sure that the goals are met, we need to make sure that we're not micromanaging them, but giving them enough freedom to make decisions, to think about what is on that next step. So again, as a business owner, you may want to look at certain leaders. If there's several people in a certain department that report to a certain leader that say, I'm feeling micromanaged, that's where we need to take some leadership training to that leader. But if it is not the leader in particular, but more of individuals, it's probably just really making sure that those guidelines are clear. What is it that they can make decisions on, and empowering them to do that. Quick story, I remember feeling so overwhelmed as a business owner that I had, like, I literally said I was going to put a sign on my door and just be like, I'm not answering any more questions today. But then I realized, like, they have to come to me for these questions because they don't have answers. I haven't given them the resources to be able to make the decision on their own. So put some, this is back in the paper days, and put some policies down and some, different guidelines, if you will, of what they can and can't do in certain situations. And then for those situations that you just can't think of, because things come up in business every day, I gave them guidelines and said that I had their back. And it changed our whole world because it empowered the staff. I wasn't an answer desk at my door, and I was able to get other things done. So it really was on me as the owner that I didn't empower my people and give them the toolbox of guardrails, really, at that time. So that one is pretty common. Another, I guess, feeling of recognition that you don't have a performance culture is employees missing those deadlines. We talked a little bit about this, but it really comes down to what is the consequence? If I had a dollar for every time I was working with a client who said, "Oh, this employee or this, this, that," what is the consequence? What is expected of that employee in order to keep their job? Right? This is where guidelines or guardrails or whatever you want to call them really come into place, because if there's no consequence for not going, above and beyond, or they're really about like just doing the things that is expected of you. If you're missing deadlines, if you're not doing tasks on time, if you're not doing tasks accurately, what is the consequence? We can go back to the episode of peeing in the pool, which is early on last year in 2023. It's a great episode, but it's really about like, you can't let Sally get away with being a crappy employee and not hitting deadlines and just barely, functioning in the company, and then expect the other 10 people in that department to be great employees. It's just, you have to have a culture where we expect deadlines to get hit or solutions to why it wasn't hit. And that's the difference between a culture of reaction and a culture of proactiveness and a performance culture. So, in order to fix this, we really need to be consistent in our leadership, and fire people when necessary. But before we get there, we have to make sure that there is consequences. And we don't want to go around saying, "Oh, if you don't do this, you're going to lose your job." But we can show that in action, right? We can have people on performance improvement plans. But again, as a leader, you need to make sure that you have the guardrails in place, that you have clearly communicated to this employee, this is what we're expecting of you. This is the deadline that we're expecting to hit. And this is why, because it affects these other things, and the next department can't do their thing until you're done with your thing. Again, going back to that why, how does what I do every day affect the company and other people in the company and in pursuit of that big company goal? And if you've done that as a leader and I as an employee still am not hitting deadlines, I'm a bad employee then. Then it's not on the leadership anymore. So this is where leadership and you as a business owner, if you have these things in place and you still have a bad apple, it's okay. That just means that that person doesn't belong on your team. And that will happen. Another obvious point of not having a performance culture is if employees don't seem motivated beyond the basic tasks, or if they just, basically they don't want to go above and beyond. This comes back to the opposite of consequences, but what are the incentives? How are you recognizing people when they go above and beyond? I'm sure you have some people on your team who are driven and who are motivated by words of affirmation and want that recognition, or they're just driven in general. They're driven people, right? So if employees don't seem motivated beyond the basic tasks, I would say do all you can to be a happy organization. If you have a lot of employees, make sure that the leaders of those employees are celebrating the wins in their department. How are people recognized? Because most people, it's one of the 5 love languages. So whether it's at the top, in the middle, or at the bottom, it is a love language of being recognized. Now, some people on your team, especially the larger your team gets, might just do the task at hand. And if they are doing what the job description needs them to do, and they're doing it well, and they are hitting deadlines, it's okay. You don't need everyone to go above and beyond. But when they do, they should be recognized for it. So make sure you have a process in place in your organization where you can celebrate that. Be a happy organization. Honestly, in our company, we have a monthly all team meeting, and that is how we start out. We're recognizing each other, thanking each other for certain things that were above and beyond. It's called shout outs, and we just do shout outs to other team members where we just want to shout out and say, hey, thanks for the, XYZ thing that you did for me. So it's recognition in front of everyone. Another thing is if staff seems to be stagnant. So similar to not motivated, but stagnant usually means we're not empowering the staff. We're not stagnant in the way of like, there's no next step. So this usually comes down to lack of a clear path in their career goal, or maybe they see it as just a job that they're just, again, checking some boxes. But I would challenge you as a leader and as the owner to make sure that there is clear career advancements for each position. Now, as you're in growth mode, that's not always possible. It might be like, this is what we need this job to be, and it's going to be this for years. But that person might be able to advance. And maybe it's not a position that you have yet in the organization. Maybe it's 2 years down the road. But for driven people, they kind of need to see that vision. And again, this goes back to sharing that vision of the company in the future. This is where that can help. They can then be extra motivated because they can see different career advancements or career paths within the company. I also suggest, as a way of fixing this, is at least once a year, review time is usually a good time. Make sure that leaders understand the goals of their team members. What makes them happy? If they're stagnant, if they're not hitting goals, if they're not going above and beyond, chances are they're probably not all that happy in their job, right? There's something that's missing. They're not feeling fulfilled. So find out in that at least once a year. You can do this at any time, but at least once a year, bring it back. Be like, hey, here's what you said when we first interviewed you, that this is something you were thinking about in 3 to 5 years. Are these still the same goals that you have in life? Things change. People have families or learn a new skill and kind of go down a different path. So ask the employees what brings them goals, or what brings them joy, and where do they see themselves in 5 years? This will help you as leaders and as the owner of the business to make sure that the people are in the right roles, have clear direction on how they're going to get to that next level if they want. Not all employees need to climb a ladder. And how they're going to get there and how you're going to help get them there. One thing I have heard from owners, and I know I felt it, a smidget of times in the past, is like, oh, do I really want to do all this training for this particular individual? And then they'll probably leave because now I know what their ultimate goal is, and it has nothing to do with my business. Maybe they want to be a stay-at-home mom and, a couple of years, and you're like, geez, I'm going to put all this time into them knowing that they're going to leave, or they're wanting to work at a, completely different industry. I think of it as times are different now. This is not the 1950s where you had one job at 18 and you retired from there. If you can get a good, dedicated employee who is doing the things that you need, going above and beyond, hitting the goals, being in a performance culture, and you get them for 3 to 5 years, that's amazing. So yeah, go ahead and train them and give them that path, because they will remember for you. We all have those mentors that helped us get to where we are, and you can be that for someone. Silos. Let's talk about silos. So if you have, again, this is usually for larger companies. The bigger you get and have different departments, a lot of times teams feel like they're working in isolation, which leads to duplicating efforts. It's inefficient. It seems like usually in silos, like they're not talking to each other, and the departments are not talking to each other. This is a result of leadership not communicating and not tying the department goals back to the company goals. Silos in a culture happen, again, sometimes based on size. Now, large companies that are aware of this and work hard at it can make sure that there are no silos. So it's not like if you're large, you're automatically going to have silos. If you have silos, that means we took the eye off that ball. Silos also can happen when we have remote workers and we have multiple locations across the world or even just across town, right? So thinking about different buckets of people doing different things and not really communicating. And that's what it comes back to, is making it really a consistent practice to have your company meetings in departmental meetings tie back to the bigger department meetings depending on the size of your company, and back to the big company goal. What is the mission? What is the vision? How does each department fit into that? Where does each employee in that department fit into that? It seems like a lot, but it can be done, and it's just sometimes really clear visuals. um, Sometimes a lot of times I actually recommend this for the larger companies or those that have some of these where it's pretty, like maybe there's a product and a service and and some software in a company. Definitely have worked with that, where there's like three clearly different things that are being produced out of a company that sometimes aren't exactly tied to each other, but it's really important that one department at least understands what the other department is working on, even if they're not like interconnected. So it is really just about that communication, making sure there's company meetings that where people can get together. Our company is completely remote, and we do a remote all company retreat every year. It's not cheap, but it is the time that culture really does build in person. And because we're all remote, that is something that we have invested in as a team. And that makes sure that we understand the personalities on the other silos, if you will, or the other departments, and really just it kind of gets rid of any of those silos before they even form.
Hey, incredible women entrepreneurs, it's Tina Sue here. I know you're juggling a lot, growing your business, managing family time, and trying to find balance. Deep down, you know you're capable of so much more, but maybe fear or uncertainty is holding you back from achieving that dream business, that dream life that you deserve. That's why I created the Dream Big, Plan Bigger guide, a game changer for your business growth. This isn't just another goal-setting document. It's your personal roadmap to achieving the impossible. Imagine having a clear vision of your biggest dreams, breaking through the barriers that hold you back, and reigniting that passion that fuels your journey. This guide is your roadmap to doing just that without compromising your family time or your personal priorities. You deserve to see your business thrive and still have time for what you love. Let's take this journey together. Download your free Dream Big, Plan Bigger workbook now at tina-sue.com and start making those dreams a reality. Now, let's get back to the show.
So, a team resistant to change is also something that I've heard in non-performance cultures. And this is kind of like employees resistant to new ideas, new processes, new technologies, kind of stuck in the old ways. Like, well, we used to do it this way and it works. So why are we doing this new thing that, Sally leader came up with? So this is where you may feel an employee being generally complacent and acceptance is status quo. And we cannot have a team that is not moving fluidly with the company. Uh, as an entrepreneur, you know that nothing is a straight line from A to B. So we need employees. This is an absolute must that employees have to be able to change in order to grow and have your company grow. So really boils down to, again, communication. How are we embracing innovation? Are you asking for innovation? Are you, even before the change is made or before the new process or procedure or whatever it is made, there's a couple of pieces of that. Are you openly talking about innovation? Are you asking your team, or are your leaders asking your team how we can do things better? If that is generally a conversation that is happening, that just becomes commonplace. Like, we're always looking to improve, we're always looking to save time, we're always, that's just the way that our company is. That is going to automatically eject anyone who doesn't like change, right? They can go work somewhere that is literally, dot and I's, cross T's, and that's all, and you never have to do anything else. But if you want someone who's going to move fast with your team, it's really about communication and asking, really asking the team to be innovative and have input. And then once the change is made, not everyone is always going to like the new process or the new procedure or the new technology or the new way we're doing things. And that boils down to the communication. How is this, a lot of times change takes extra effort in the short term to make a bigger effort or a bigger impact in the long run. So as long as we can communicate that, acknowledge it, like, look, guys, I know that with implementing the new software, we're going to have to work some nights and weekends, or it's going to be really challenging for us to help our clients through this new software, blah, blah, blah. Like, acknowledge that it's not just all roses and sunshine when we make changes, but here's what we're in pursuit of. Here's what we're actually going to be able to do once we get really good at using this new software. And that's just an example. But if we're having a new process or a new procedure, it's really because of this. And this is how it is going to help us all in the long run, right? So it boils down to communication. And when I've seen this present itself in companies, it's usually newer companies that I'm working with because it's something we work on, but it's where an owner is running the business with their head down, and it's just a lot of lack of communication. So communication is huge. I'm really big on the whys because that is really what the employees need to understand things, and then they can make a decision for themselves if that is something they want to be part of. One thing that you may hear of from time to time is that your employees are burnt out or are overworked, they're burnt out, their workload is just too much. So, first of all, I would say if you're hearing this, find out if it is a person, if it's a team, like if it's several people on a team, or if it's just one person. It might be the squeaky wheel where they're what I call the Verizon, back in the Verizon days, the Verizon commercial days, where everyone was like, oh, we're all here. And you've got that one spokesperson supposedly speaking for the rest of the team. I don't buy that. Like, if I would go and ask everybody that they say, like, everyone is overworked or everyone is complaining. I want to talk to everyone to see if it is everyone, because it could just be the squeakiest wheel, which is the one who likes to hear themselves talk, right? So it is important to make sure that you are not overworking your team long term. Now, there may be, again, just like the example of like implementing some new software, there may be a period of time that your employees are going to have to put in what feels like extra effort to get past a certain project or a certain task or a certain change that's happening in the business. But if it's short term, it's a temporary overworked or a temporary, challenge to get through. So that would be the first thing. Is it temporary or is this long term? Is it one person or is it a team? Again, if you have leadership team who are with overseeing different departments, is it mostly Sally's employees who are saying they're overworked? Or is it a certain department who's overworked? And here's the biggest challenge. The way to fix this is actually finding out what that either that team or that person is having the biggest challenge with. And I feel that, again, time and time again, working with so many employees and having so many employees myself in my multiple businesses, a person who truly is overworked is going to be willing to have someone help them find the answer of how not to be overworked. Let me say that again. A person who truly does have it as efficient as they know how to be and is really truly overworked is willing to be able to have a leader come and help them determine what they can do to not be overworked anymore. The ones who complain and say, oh my gosh, I am so overworked. And if you go, well, let me see what you're working on, or let me help you with that. And they don't want that input. They don't want to tell you what they're working on all day. Those are the ones who are not efficient and not really overworked. They're probably doing things in a way that is taking forever, or they're, out having smoke breaks or in the lunchroom for too much, or they're working from home and doing laundry on top of it. So my fix to this is a little bit more challenging, but it can be done. If someone is complaining that, and you've already analyzed if it's a one person or if it's a department, I recommend to, in a positive way, you really want to come at this very positively, like, absolutely, I want to help you. There's probably some things that we can either get some tools in or bring someone in to help you. Like, I want to help figure this out because I don't want you overwhelmed and I don't want you overworked over a long period of time. You said this has been going on for 6 months. That's not the company culture that we want. So let me either sit with you and see what your typical day looks like, or jot down on the list of what you're doing each day and generally how much it takes you each day, or record your screen all day. Like, there's ways to see what someone's doing, or put another employee with them, or pop in on them if they're on Zoom. Like, there's different ways that you can find out maybe it is something that they're doing in a manual way when there could be technology to help them cut the time in half to do that. We've seen this and we're working on this in our bookkeeping side of the company, that a lot of times things come in an Excel spreadsheet, and then we're doing like different manual stuff, or things come in from clients in a PDF, and then we're having to hand key different things. Like, there are automations that could cut that time in half, or there's technology, or there's AI. So someone who truly wants to be a team player and not be overworked is willing to have you dive in with them, or have their leader dive in and find out where they could be saved time. So that is how I would recommend tackling that. You can't just take things off their plate because they might already be a slacker. So you have to dive in and find out, where can I help you? And it's all coming from a place of, I want to help you through that. I want to make sure that you're not overworked, and find a solution that works to be able to find out exactly where their time is going so that you can help them. That one's a bit of a challenge, but it can be done. Another aspect of a non-performance culture is that some employees feel excluded or undervalued and have expressed this. And if that's expressed, it's probably affecting the overall morale and performance of the company. And likely this is simply a lack of diversity and inclusion, leading to lack of different perspectives and a lack of innovation. So again, I would say, is this one department feeling this way? Is it one team feeling this way? Is it company-wide? So if it's one department, again, on any of these where you're kind of like peeling the onion to find out, like, where is this complaint or where is this characteristic coming from? If it's one department, it's likely the leader of that department. If it is one person on the team and you're the leader, it could be you or it could be that person. So it's like, something isn't always company-wide unless you're hearing it throughout the different departments. So that's the first part, is to determine, where is this coming from for real? So the fix on this one is pretty easy. If your team is feeling lack of inclusion, lack of different perspectives on the team, it sounds like one voice is always being heard, and maybe it's the owner's voice. Their innovation isn't happening. It likely is because the team is not diverse. So this is where you have to have HR involved, or recruiting. And diversity is good, and it is here to stay. This is not something that is a buzzword. It really helps the business to have different viewpoints, different cultures, different people who are raised in different ways. It may be harder in certain geographic areas, but it's not impossible. So even if especially with remote teams these days, like, you can get diversity. I'm not saying to hire based on numbers and having to have certain different cultures, but I'm saying you need, as a leader, to be open to that. And because you want those different opinions, you want those different viewpoints, especially if your client base or whoever it is that you serve is also diverse. It's men and women and different, household incomes or different geographic areas, all the things that make it diverse. If your client base is that way, your team definitely should be that way. So there are several, I just went through several different, feelings or things that you can hear within your company that are clear indicators that you do not have a performance culture, or that it's not as well-oiled machine as you would probably want it. A couple other things is maybe customers are complaining, maybe turnover rates. These all feed into a non-performance culture. And it all boils down to really getting clear on the vision, clear on the departments that are rolling into that company-wide vision, and then the individuals. Really having a clear understanding of career paths and making sure that there are consequences for non-performers and that there's recognition for the people who are performing. It seems simple when you say it like that, but as we know, entrepreneurship is not simple. And this is one of those things that you can pick 2 or 3 of these that maybe resonate with you and go fix those and then come back and fix another couple. But all of these should be top of mind, and kind of go through it, your leadership team, and run through this list with them and say, how would we rank these? Do we feel like our employees are motivated, or do we feel like employees are missing deadlines? Like, take each one of these topics and rate them with your team and see which ones that you want to make a change on first. That is how I would recommend you kind of handling this. And within a few months, you will be rocking and rolling and have a culture of performance. Thanks, ladies, for listening. I hope this brings you some new goals to get your company top notch. And I thank you for listening to Women Choosing Growth. We'll talk soon.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please be sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. The Women Choosing Growth Show is not just another podcast. It's a tribe of women helping each other grow. So please share this podcast with all the women entrepreneurs that you would love to see succeed. If you'd like to know more about customized business advising through Cultivate Advisors, download business tools, or sign up for upcoming events, visit www.womenchoosinggrowth.com. Once again, that's www.womenchoosinggrowth.com. Remember, we are in this together. See you on the next one.